So we are here, Percona Live 2023 in Denver with Bruce Momjian, who is a core contributor to Postgres, author, bon voyant, and snappy dresser.
Snappy dresser, there you
go. Matter of fact, I was talking with someone last night, and they were comparing the number of times we've actually seen you without a necktie. And I think the most count with sightings of Bruce without necktie is 3.
That's funny. Yeah, sometimes I get beat up in the elevator. They're like, "Where's your bow tie? What's the matter today?" Like, oh, is it just doesn't feeling it today? And they're like, I could see the disappointment on their faces enough. So I actually go back and reevaluate my clothing choices, I guess.
Yeah. So Postgres 16 comes out in a few months.
Yep.
What are the big new presents we're unwrapping?
Well, we're putting out the beta this Thursday. So beta 1 is this Thursday. We just finalized the release notes for the beta yesterday. No, really Monday morning. So it's pretty fresh. Obviously, we have a couple months of beta testing to work through. But I was telling every year I have to do the major release notes, and it's just an incredibly mind-numbing experience. I basically say it's like imagine you boil some spaghetti and you dump it all on the floor. Then half of it you have to throw away because it's no good, and the other half you have to order it based on color, and you've got to line up all the colors.
Yeah.
And once you're done, it looks great, but at the time you
the process is less than desirable.
Because the way you do it is you have just random commits for 12 months,
Yeah.
But once it gels, then you put the groupings together, you start to see some stuff. So, for example, just today, we're polishing up one of the group of release notes items, basically based on the use of SIMD instructions for vector operations. So things like parsing JSON and identifying non-ASCII characters and strings, and looking up active backends in an array, which we used to do effectively, with standard C code. We found the optimizer couldn't really insert SIMD instructions, symmetric, instructions into there. So we basically ended up writing boilerplate x86-64 instructions for those, and for ARM, I believe, is the other one. But some of the big ones, some of the things that were holding us back, for example, the ability to do logical replication from a standby. Up until this point, as people were setting up data architectures, you could do binary replication from a standby just fine, but anytime you need to do logical replication, it had to come from only the primary server. And you can imagine, particularly if you got a multi-site setup, now you're effectively having to ship a whole bunch of write-ahead log records across over and over again to different logical replicas that might be, thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
Some of the other stuff, we've done kind of a big overhaul of some of the memory management. We've done one of the areas, interestingly, we didn't improve was partitioning. Now, you may know, since Postgres 10, we've been for 6 years. We started with the syntax, and then we got polished some of the limitations, and then we started to optimize the way the query optimizer can prune partitions and do runtime partition pruning, a whole bunch of stuff. Well, I guess I'm realizing now is that Postgres 15, we kind of pretty much finished that, because in this release, we won't really have a partitioning section in the docs, in the release notes, because there's only 2 items, and they're not that significant. There's a lot of sort of observability. We have a new I/O view, so you can kind of see what I/O is happening on the system. Previously, you really couldn't get that information kind of all together. I think we have some of the SQL JSON standard constructor functions coming. We're hoping to get in the ability to convert JSON to tables, what's called JSON table. It would convert JSON.
Which almost made it in 15.
And unfortunately, it almost made it in 16 as well. It did not make it. Constructor functions made it. The other part didn't. We have the infrastructure came in. So the infrastructure to do to basically catch type conversion errors as we're converting from JSON to SQL. We had to get that infrastructure in so that we could do the JSON table, but the actual construction didn't get in there. I was talking to Ibrar today, and he's super excited about what I thought was a minor feature, but basically the ability to do connection pooling from the interface library, from LibPQ.
Yeah.
Up to that, you really had to have the connection pooler and so forth, and you can kind of now round robin across servers, particularly if you're doing read replicas. You don't even need a connection pooler in a lot of cases now. So he's super excited about it. It's not the big patch, but it was kind of a game changer for him.
Yeah. I know there's so many options besides PG Pool 2 and a couple others. So someone who's new to it's looking, okay, which one do I pick? Which one's best? And it's kind of like, well, it depends how are you using it. And it's like, well, do you need a connection pooler and a load balancer, or you just need a connection pooler? There's the rich dichotomy of choices out there is kind of confusing for a lot of folks new to the Postgres, which I found refreshing.
It is very, and in fact, we did a little analysis of that at my employer EDB, where we're supporting PG Pool, we're supporting PG Bouncer, and probably 6 or 9 months ago, we kind of sat down and said, okay, the market's matured. Is there a sense we have to support both of these? Could we roll one of the features from one of them into another? What we concluded was that the level at which each pooler operates gives it advantages and disadvantages. And that effectively you can't merge them together, because if you tried to merge them together, they would only be operating at the level of one for performance or the level of other for features. You can't really, and it's kind of funny. You look at two products that do the same thing pretty much, and you're thinking, oh, why can't we just merge them together? Is there one better than the other? And with this one, you're basically like, no, we really can't pick a winner here. Yeah. If you need the kind of routing that PG Pool does at the SQL level, you got to operate that level. If you need the performance, then you need to read it more at the protocol level, and you need PG Bouncer, and you're kind of stuck there.
Well, a year ago when the first release of 15 came out, I'm really reading through your release notes, and I saw the merge function, which with a MySQL background, I'm looking at this and going, if I had this 20 years ago, this would have saved me about a year and a half worth of programming, because it was just a wonderful implementation. And I was speaking at Postgres Silicon Valley conference, and there was a guy in the audience. You know how you're talking, you see some guy in the back of the audience, he's bouncing up and down in his chair, and you wonder, well, either he's really low on blood sugar and having issues, or he's really excited about the feature. And he came up to me and said, I got to go back to work right now because I've just figured out my big problem. So that was really exciting.
That is super exciting. Yeah.
And in the past year and a half since I started working for Percona, I've been more exposed to the Postgres community, and it's amazing how vibrant and widespread it is. My background's mainly MySQL, which has a very active community, but it's active in a different way. And the amazing ability that so much is done over mailing lists that, which was, I thought, how could you do that through your mail? And you start reading through the mail lists, it's like you were having one about some discussions earlier this week about at-rest encryption. And someone had some very heartfelt questions coming back and forth. And it's like, okay, I see how this dialogue drives stuff and lets you get the mindset of how things should work.
Yeah, I think, ultimately comes down to the idea of a bug tracker and the idea of having things siloed into things that are operational, or actionable. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And when you look at like the TD discussion or pretty much any of the major stuff we've done, it's more like a journey than a deliverable, because we don't really assign tasks to anyone, and we don't have people that we can hold accountable to almost anything, right? Yeah. It becomes this really sort of amorphous journey that you kind of go on. I was at Scale, I think it was not this year, but the year before, and Fedora was doing a talk about bug trackers, and I went with Robert Treat, and we're like, oh, let's go see what they're doing, whatever. And he goes and he talks about all these wonderful things they're doing, and that bug tracker has this many items, and we massage them, we go through them, and I'm starting to get the religion here, like, oh, well, it's really great. Maybe they have a new approach to what they're doing. And toward the last third of the talk, he said, but he said, by the way, he said, we erase all the bug tracker entries every 2 years. And I'm like, excuse me, Postgres, that's, life of a feature couldn't be more than 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And he said, well, he said, what we find is that effectively anything that's over 2 years old probably isn't relevant anymore. And if we have to have somebody re-report it, we will. And I was like, I just, it was deflating. I guess we weren't going to find a lot there. I think one of the things I keep coming back to is a focus on some of the negatives of the typical bug tracker process. So, the big problem we found is that when somebody has a problem, it goes into the bug tracker, and then you think your job is done, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden your bug tracker has 1,000, 10,000 items, and you're in bad shape. So one of the things that the lack of bug tracker forces is it forces us to really address the email. We really can't file it anywhere. We don't have a file cabinet for anything. So
Power yet,
which it does help.
Forgive us folks for having a minor technical
issue.
And there we go.
There we go.
When your laptop runs low on battery,
Exactly.
Well, the thing is, there's so many software projects where they've lost the original programmers and they've lost the decision making, and you've lost the history of why things were
Right.
done that way. And it's just refreshing me to be able to read through some of these email correspondence and go, aha, that's why it's that way.
Yeah, I mean, we have a to-do list, which people do add to, and it does have somewhat of a track of really difficult problems that we've kind of looked at over the years. But it's in no way, comprehensive. I think the real telling issue though is the bug count in Postgres, the bug count in every minor release. When you look at it, you just don't have a lot of bugs. So is the bug tracker? Could we do better if we had that? Would it make us lazy? Would it? There are a lot of values to bug trackers. For example, if you submit something, you have no way of knowing when it got fixed. You're not told when it's fixed. You can't go back and find out almost what release it was fixed in sometimes if the item wasn't like part of the release notes, or maybe it was a minor thing. So it's not a great system we have. We haven't found a better one yet.
Yeah, but what you have works, which is amazing, and the code is always amazing.
Yeah.
Anything else about Postgres you want to tell us before we wrap this up?
I feel like we bounced back, well from COVID. We saw a lot of, pretty much from September. I was talking to you today. I mean, from September to this month, it's been, pretty much so many conferences, probably 2 or 3 a month. Some of them are overlapping.
Yeah.
We had a Chicago and a San Jose at the same day. There was a lot of pent up demand, I think. And Percona, for me, is kind of the last one to finish it out. I think going forward we'll have more of a manageable schedule, hopefully, of events. But the project health is good. I remember one of my family members saying, when do you finish Postgres? Like, when is it done? Like, when do you have all the features? And I said, it's really not like a single use utility that you look at and it kind of has all the features. The old maxim of project, software is done when you can't remove anything, right?
Yeah.
You've heard that before. But I think because of the variability of workloads, the new workloads that are coming out, the variability of demands on databases, some of the new technology coming along, it just seems like there's still new architectures for scaling, particularly security requirements and stuff. You just keep the demands keep coming, and maybe that's because it's a relational database, because it's so tied to workloads, it's so tied to business processes and data needs of today, and I guess that stuff's always going to be changing.
Well, I have a talk later on Postgres for MySQL DBA.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
For the ones who are kind of curious, but they need a little pushed into the pool.
Yeah.
And one of the more interesting things I found was a trend chart where they took the top 7 databases on the DB Engine rankings and projected out. Oracle's going down, SQL Server's going down, MySQL is going down sharply, and the only one on the ascendancy is Postgres. And I know you're responsible for a lot of that. So thank you very much for all your work, and thank you for talking to us today.
That's great. It's my pleasure.